Alright, we're going to get started as soon as Twitch decides it wants to behave. Should be any day. It says sending data. Actually log in really quick. TV. Check. Oh. Make sure we can actually hear me, hopefully. Okay. Why aren't you working? So here we go. Mic aux. So that should be working for this mic. Yeah, you. Check, 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 check. Alright, for some reason I think that doesn't want to work. But, the bright side, I think Twitch is sending. Let's see if it's... Cool, alright, we're going to be good to go. So today I'm going to be doing something pretty exciting. Today's what I'm going to be doing is SynthMaster has released this competition where basically you build a track using only SynthMaster, either SynthMaster 1 and or SynthMaster 2, and you win a lot of cash prizes in addition to the actual SynthMaster Everything bundle. And as much as I'd love to win some of the prizes, and some money would be nice, or the Everything bundle, I think it'd just be a fun challenge. And the cool thing about this is we're going to be doing sound design pretty much all with SynthMaster. So that'll give us a lot of really cool stuff to kind of work with using the same synth to build an entire track. So basically what I want to do, I've kind of done a little bit of stuff ahead of time so that way you're not dealing with all the boring stuff like me programming the MIDI for the main melody, because that honestly takes a long time. So let me go ahead and snag the melody that I probably want to use, and let's go ahead and just call this melody. And let's go ahead and just make a basic lead sound. I'm gonna go ahead and fold the piano roll here so that way we're only seeing the notes we're using. And let's go ahead and just build a basic lead sound that's going to work well, just kind of for hearing this idea and starting to build the track. So I'm going to go ahead and initialize the preset. We're going to go with 8 voices in unison for now. I'm going to have this free running sawtune wave. And also turn up some of the stereo width. And one of the things I found that's really important with this particular type of sound is getting the ADSR envelopes, but specifically the release actually. It's really important to get that release long enough that you have kind of enough trail and enough attack with the decay, but not too much that it's going to be washed out when you put reverb on it. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good, and I do want to have a filter on it. I'm actually going to choose a 24 dB low-pass filter. Cool, actually. And now I'm going to just choose oscillator 2, kind of do something similar, but I'm going to do a few things a little bit differently. I may experiment with this being an octave higher. Same thing with this, making sure we get the... Okay, so that sounded pretty good for a basic sound. I want to make sure both oscillator 1 and oscillator 2 are being routed through filter 1, which they are, because these guys are in series. And the next thing I need to do is I need to make sure we have the mod envelope mapped to, I'm going to just use mod envelope 1 to map to the filter cutoff. That way when we close the filter, we kind of get that nice sort of plucky sound when the filter's closed. And the last thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to map the mod wheel here to the filter cutoff. So one of the things I can do is right click and do add modulation, MIDI, and I'm just going to do CC1, which is the mod wheel. So now if I go here to the mod matrix, it's already mapped it to full strength. Now I could use the reverb built in here to SynthMaster, but what's probably going to happen is I'm going to be layering this with a bunch of different leads. So for now, I don't actually want to be adding any reverb because I'll just do that on the bus level. But maybe I will experiment with some delay. For these, I kind of like using a ping pong, and the timing, I usually like just doing dotted eighth notes. Absolutely not. Dog is deciding to chew on shoes. So let's hear that in context with this melody, and we may go back and change this melody a little bit later, and obviously we'll change the sound later, but just for getting a basic idea of what we're going to be doing, let me change the tempo to 138. That's 139. Let's hear it. Okay, so that's sounding pretty good. I think there's still more we can do to give it a little bit of character. So that's sounding pretty good. I may turn this key track for the filter down, or at least off. So now it's just a matter of tweaking the sound so we like it, but I kind of like the way that sounds for now. So maybe what I'll do is we'll start making kind of a little small section, which would I guess be like the main drop or the main section of our song, and we'll build the track around that, and then from there we'll kind of space it out. Now most of the time, most of these tracks that are up in Uplifting Trance, these are going to be, set at 8 minutes long. This song has to be between 3 and 5 minutes, so I'm probably not going to do the intro, but we'll kind of start it out with the fill and and with and kind of go right into the part where the sub comes in and shorten that, and then go into the breakdown, of course, go into the main section, have the dropout, and then we'll kind of from there kind of fade it out. So to do that, maybe the next thing I'll do, let me add in another MIDI track, and they even gave me the color that I wanted. I'm going to create a sub bass here, and once again I'm going to use SynthMaster 1, and I might actually end up just using only SynthMaster 1 for this track rather than SynthMaster 2, although I love SynthMaster 2 a lot. It just might be kind of cool to just try it with this standard wavetable dual oscillator. Well, really it's 4 oscillators, but 2 main oscillators, 2 filters, synth, just kind of building a whole track around it. Because in a lot of cases, that's all you need. So for this, I'm going to choose 2 waveforms. I'm going to do a pulse and a sawtooth. And first I'm going to initialize the patch. And I'm actually going to set both of these to 8 voices in unison. Let's do a square. And the important thing here is getting the cutoff. Maybe I'll end up using a 24 dB per octave slope. It's too loud. And the important thing here, I'm actually going to pitch these both down 2 octaves so that we're really in that kind of sub-bassy range. So what I'm doing is playing with the phase of the second oscillator to really kind of beef up the sound, because that's going to cause phase cancellations with this first one. And before I get too far into doing this, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to place an equalizer, an EQ8, on this channel so we can see what's going on here at the same time. Let's bring that up. Of course, we want our bass frequencies here. So what's really important with this sound is that we get the fundamental, and we're playing with the fundamental and the first harmonic. So notice what happens as I change the phase of this second oscillator. So you can see the relative kind of, I guess, the relative loudness or amplitude of these other sinusoids that are present, or these other harmonics present, are going to be changing as I adjust the phase. So that's actually sounding pretty nice to me for a sub bass. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take these bass notes here that we are using. I'm just going to copy them and paste them on a new MIDI channel that I put in here. So and I'm just going to hit legato on this. And we're going to make sure that this is 16 bars long, just like the pattern that we started with. And the important thing with this is that the changes happen on the beat. Do that. Make sure these are all long enough. I'm actually going to get rid of all these notes except for the first one, just that way it'll be easier to create whatever pattern we want to once we have that. Go ahead and delete these guys. And all of these, I'm actually going to duplicate twice. That way we pretty much have 1 bar to work with, for each of these notes. And for this, I might start with a traditional offbeat bass line. So this would be the kicks would be coming in here, and then we have our bass notes coming in here. And I always like shortening it just a tad bit from the end of the bar. So I have all these selected, so they're all going to be doing the same thing. And one of the things I'm noticing now is that's a little bit too low. So this C I'm also noticing is too low, so I'm going to move that up an octave. So let's play these together. Now I kind of like the idea of that C being able to be played an octave lower. I actually liked it an octave lower, but I think that's still too low for this. So what we're actually going to do is transpose the entire song. Let's see, where is that C anyway? So here it is. I'm going to bring this an octave down, and then we're actually going to just take all of these notes. I'm going to select both of them, and we're going to shift this up. Let's start with G sharp. Sounding pretty nice. I may still decide to change this later on, but luckily that's the great thing about having MIDI. So I'm liking the way that that's sounding, and what we're going to do now is I may just boost the fundamental frequency here in this sub bass. That's a low shelf. We need like a peaking filter. Okay, that's sounding pretty good. I'm actually going to turn off all these other bands just so they're not doing anything. I mean, they shouldn't be, but might as well, even if it's just slightly there could be some phase shifting, and that's not something we want. Cool, so that's sounding pretty good. The next thing in this sub bass chain I want to put on is R bass, and I just really love the way that this sounds, so that's kind of why I use it. And the important thing here is just finding the right frequency for this sound and making sure the gains are matched up. That way it doesn't just sound better because it's louder. Let's just solo this sub. This is without the R bass. Alright, that's actually sounding pretty good. And then the last thing I want to do, I want to make sure that this isn't getting any clicks or pops. And the way I can avoid this is just by making sure there's a slight bit of attack and release. With these really low notes, you can have issues where it's starting so quickly that you'll get these kind of nasty sounds there. So. And And last but not least is what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a limiter on the end here just to make sure that we're not, that all of our notes, this can kind of help, maybe I'll use a compressor actually. And I could just as easily use the one on the synth, but I'm using this after the R bass just so the R bass might be, or it probably really will be boosting different frequencies in different ways, so this will kind of help with that. So let's go ahead and what I'm just going to really slam this, just that way each note is pretty much the same. And you can hear it's actually wave shaping the sound, and that's because we have this, we have these controls set to pretty small values. So that's actually really helping a lot just to kind of even out the volume of these subnotes. Great. All right. So the next thing I want to do very quickly is get the kick in. That way we can get the kick and sub together. Actually, I'm going to use a MIDI track, and I actually made this Max for Live device, and it actually is on the device store. But I like using it for kicks and any percussion, and you'll see me use this all the time. And I called it Simplicity, but really is what it is it's just a version of Simpler, but instead of an ADSR envelope, it actually has an AHDSR. So in addition to attack, sustain, decay, release, it actually has a hold time in between the attack and decay. They're like the attack and decay time. So it basically means if you're having these percussive samples, you'll have this nice time where you can actually just let the sample hold at its full value before decaying out, which I find helps a lot with kick drums in particular, but any sorts of other percussion where you don't want it to immediately be falling out. So that's kind of why I made this device. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to get a kick drum, and before I do that, I'm just going to pencil in a pretty basic pattern here. It doesn't have to be long, at least not yet. Oops. You bastard. Cool, so let's go ahead and get a kick. And we can use kicks from any pack we want to. Luckily with this competition, we don't have to necessarily synthesize our own, although maybe later on I will show you guys how I do that. But that's what I'll be doing. Maybe I'll just be going into Freshly Squeezed, has a lot of good stuff. Maybe I'll just take one of these Shantaya's kicks. And one of the reasons I like making the sub first is it's a lot easier to find a kick that works with your sub bass than try to manipulate the sound or tone of your sub bass to work with your kick. So that's why I generally work with the sub bass first. It's a little counterintuitive, but I find that that's how it works for me. Oh, that sounds pretty nice. So you can hear it's kind of releasing a little bit because what's happening is this release time was turned down to 0. I actually really like the sound of that. So the next thing, what I want to do, the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to grab an LFO tool, and I'm going to put one on the sub, and then I may put one on the kick just kind of temporarily to show you guys what I'm looking for here. So if I just go to plugins, LFO tool, put this on the sub bass, and actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to group these together, and this is going to be sort of like a kick and bass bus, and I'm just, the way I like organizing things, I like having kick over here, and I'm going to give it a red color. Let's do that over here. Cool. So if we look at what's going on here with the sub bass, let's first take a look at the waveform. You can see the actual waveform coming in here, but if you notice, there's actually a little bit that's hanging over, and that's what I don't want. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut that out, and I'm going to bring this down, just so that way these first two parts of each beat, these first two 16th notes, only the kick can be playing. And this is another one you have to be careful. If you're right up to the edge, you'll get those clicks again. And I like the way that that's sounding. So let's actually go ahead and look here. I'm going to put one of these on the kick and bass bus just for the time being to show you what's going on. You can see both the kick and the sub kind of almost overlapping. So if I was to put one of these on the kick, you'll kind of see. I've kind of timed this just about perfectly with where this hold time is. 290 milliseconds at 138 beats per minute. That's about where your 2/16 notes are. But notice if I was to decrease it more. And I like the way that that's sounding. So when mixing, I'm gonna have the kick kind of peaking at -8. That's good enough for now. I might just jack this up a little bit. You can always use a utility for this too. Alright, you know what, that's good enough. And then we'll just mix in the sub to kind of match, not necessarily match volume-wise, but just fit in nicely without taking any low end from the kick. Okay, that's sounding good. Now, a few things I'm noticing about this kick. Well, I do like the sound of it. First of all, it's not in mono, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but I think it goes too far out to the sides. So Oops, it's called utility. So I'm just going to put a utility in here and just make this thing in mono. Actually, even easier. So I'm not going to go full mono, but I definitely want to center it a little bit more. And last but not least, I'm going to put an EQ8 on here just to kind of really tighten up that high end. I might cut off the very low lows, because all that stuff's going to do is just eat up your headroom and you're not even hearing it. And I might boost the highs a little bit because I think this kit could use a little bit more highs. And last but not least, what I may end up doing, and I'm just going to try this out, is just putting this compressor, this Vertigo VSC2, to see if this can help bring that transient through a little bit. So I'm going to go with the 4-to-1 release at 10 milliseconds of attack, and let's just see. I actually do like that, and I do think that's actually tightening it up a little bit. So I think I'm going to keep that on there. I'm aiming for about 2 dB of gain reduction. Yeah, that's actually sounded really good to me. Cool, so that's probably about as much work as I'm going to do on the kick and sub bass right now. When we have the intro and outro, we'll just be having the sub bass playing these notes, kind of the root note. But other than that, sounded good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just call this lead 1, because that's exactly what this is. And I'm going to give this kind of nice sort of pinkish color. And I actually want to group this with kind of a bunch of other sounds that we're going to have. So this is sort of like the leads and plugs. Oops. And right now I'm probably not going to do too much, but the first thing I am going to do is put an EQ8 on this bus channel. Let's go ahead and do that. And that's fine. I think I might leave it around here. Sorry. This guy, it's about at 83 or 100 hertz. And I'm just going to leave that the way it is right now. Just that way later on we can always go back and tweak this or even automate this during the track. So that way, if during the breakdown we want all that low end, but maybe during the drop, because we have the kick and bass and even all the mid basses coming in, we can just leave that as it is. And last but not least, I'm just going to put an LFO tool on here just for side chaining, and we can of course automate the amount here as well. In fact, one of the things I like doing, and you'll see me do this a lot, is I'll create a group, and in this group I'll also put a utility, this is an audio effect, here. And what I'll just do with this guy is this is just kind of a rack for general stuff that I want to do. So for instance, I'll have the volume map to macro 8. This is just going to be leads and plugs volume. That way when I want to come over and automate anything, it's very easy to find because it's here. I can map this to, for instance, macro 1. This is just going to be low cut frequency. And maybe give this color. Doesn't really matter. And then last but not least is what I want to do is this depth knob here. I like mapping this to a macro as well. Just that way, so this is really just so this can be automated really easily. So this is LFO tool amount. And I honestly find that I like the way the default LFO tool just sounds. I don't know what it is. The only thing I may change about it is I might bring this knob over a little bit, just that way you don't get any clicks when it ends. So let's listen to what this sounds, slowly bring in the sidechain, and maybe one of the things I can do is like this. And now maybe just a good time, now that we're doing all this, is I might actually put on a reverb. I like using Arts Acoustic for this, but it doesn't, I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't make a huge difference, but I'm just used to doing this. And once again, what I like doing is setting the dry to, oh, come on. Oops, okay. 0 dB. And this wet will be the one that I can map to, let's say, macro 5. So this is just going to be reverb amount. It's a nice bluish color. I always imagine blue when I think of reverb for some reason. And now we can just go ahead and add the reverb. Probably too much. So to me, that reverb really does add a lot to kind of the sound, which is why I like having it here, just kind of for just listening when doing the sound design. Because one of the things I noticed for myself personally is I'm used to hearing that reverb sound. So if I'm doing sound design without much reverb on a synth, I'll end up bringing up the release too much on the amplitude envelope, just because, well, that's what I kind of expect to hear. Cool, so let's go ahead and I might do bipolar random for this phase knob, just so every note hits a different phase. I'm just curious if this is gonna kind of give it a little bit of life. now what I may be trying to do is add a little bit of attack to the sound. Because right now I'm feeling like it's missing a little bit of that initial punch. Now we could layer this with a pluck, and that's probably what I'll do next. But there are a few tricks we could do to just kind of really give it that extra oomph at the beginning. So the first thing I'm going to do is just add a very slight amount of decay. Now I'm going to match this to oscillator 1's pitch. Let's see, there's probably a better way to do this. Fine, I'll just go to mod wheel here. So source is going to be mod envelope 2, and the target's going to be, I could do all the oscillators pitch, but I'll just start with oscillator 1. We're going to do where is pitch? Here it is. And I'm an idiot. I should be using mod envelope. Ha! I should be using this guy. So there you can hear the click kind of going. So here's what I've done is I've mapped mod envelope 2 to oscillator 1's pitch. I may also do the same to oscillator 2, but maybe not use it. It just kind of helps it give a little bit of click to the sound. Yeah, I don't want to be doing this with amplitude. Okay, good. I think actually amplitude envelope 1 is affecting both. Yeah, both oscillators from what I can tell. That's great, and I am going to turn the voices down to 8. I shouldn't be using more than 8 at a time because even though these releases are pretty long, but this will just help save CPU. Even though the SynthMasters are really light on CPU, it's something I've really noticed since the beginning, since using them. And I know Booleant and all the guys at KV331, well, probably just all Booleant, but they've done a great job really optimizing this. So yeah, it's great. And maybe for the next lead is what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to duplicate this. And this is one of those few times I'm actually okay with it duplicating the MIDI. And for this, guys, what I want to do, I actually do want to use SynthMaster 2. It might be one of the only times I do it, but I like being able to have all of those oscillators available. So let's go ahead and go to SynthMaster, SynthMaster 2. I'm just going to put it on here. And one of the things that's really interesting, so when I first got SynthMaster, I really had a big crush on Silent. Still do, still love that synth, but I ended up recreating a lot of patches from Silent in SynthMaster as a way to learn. This is a long time ago. And it really did help me actually quite a bit because you can get pretty much the exact same sound out of them close enough that I think most people wouldn't be able to tell the difference. So that's pretty cool. So let's kind of do something similar. So here you can see we have the 2 oscillators, but we also have layer 2, which I'm not going to mess with too much right now. But so once again, I'm going to let's just do 7 voices right now. So I believe ADSR1 is by default mapped to amplitude, which it is. And we could try maybe a different filter, maybe this bite filter. So I like the way that that's sounding, and what this is kind of doing is just adding a slight bit more body to the sound. If you listen to any of these tracks nowadays, you're going to see a lot of these different layers going on. But yeah, I kind of like the way that that's doing it. Maybe also what I'll do, just to kind of for fun, let's go ahead and add in oscillator 2, and let's choose a different waveform. So maybe pulse, and we can actually, I forget how to do this. Nope. And it's the fake. So what this tone spread's actually going to do is there's this tone knob which will actually, usually it's done I think with the spectrum. So each one will kind of get its own, each note or each voice in the, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, I guess each voice being played, each oscillator, that's what I'm trying to say. Each voice for this oscillator will kind of get a different value for this bend. So this just kind of adds a little bit of interest, something a little bit different. And with this sound, I think I may also add with an LFO, with like a voice, let's just do voice LFO 1, just a little bit of pulse width modulation. So what I can do, that's not pulse width modulation, but I was just wanted to add a little bit of pitch drift as well, just once again keeping things a little bit interesting. And what this is, so I'm going to add modulation 1 source. We're going to do the LFO, and we're just going to do, I mean, I guess I'll just use, the voice LFO 1. And yeah, okay, that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to set this on bipolar, just so that way it's going both ways. Not that it really matters. things we can do here with SynthMaster, and I probably won't use this, but we can actually turn on unison for the whole layer too. So this is kind of like the virus where you can actually choose, let's say I have to do 4 voices. So each of these with 7 voices oscillator 1 and 7 voices oscillator 2 are each going to be multiplied by 4 because we're splitting the entire signal chain up into 4. And I likely won't do that because that's probably going to end up smearing out the kind of nice attack that we have with all these leads. But that sounded pretty good. I might just leave it off, but two sounds fine. So we'll do that. And the next thing I'm going to do, I'm actually going to add an EQ, because one of the things, and you'll just kind of hear this sometimes, oops, EQ 8, is this fundamental will sometimes just stick out a lot, and this kind of happens when you're doing a lot of unison. So you can see this guy a lot louder than all the others. So very easy to do. Just come up here. Just kind of shelf it down a little bit just so it's not as offensive. I think this one's actually okay the way it is, but I might put another EQ on here just in case later on I want to go back and adjust something. I might turn these guys off because this is happening at the bus level as well. That's actually sounding pretty good. The next thing I want to do actually is put the mag EQ4 here on this bus as well. Love this plugin. Just on all of it. And it has this nice kind of air band gain, which just kind of adds a little bit of extra top end, but it's so smooth. I mean, because this is at 40 kilohertz, right? So that's going to be way beyond the range of human hearing, but it's such a gentle slope that it ends up affecting down below 20 kilohertz and into the auditory, what's actually perceivable auditorily when you get down there. So let's take a listen to what this does. So I actually think there's a little bit too much high end in particular for oscillator 2's voice. Luckily there's this nice little high cut knob, which leaves the rest of the sound alone and just kind of does that. So I'm going to keep that, and maybe I may try a different filter. Probably don't want to be messing with that too much. Yeah, I'm not going to add any drive right now. And I might want to add a little bit more release on this. I think oscillator 2 may be a little too loud as well. And this is one of those things that happens. You'll come back and you'll listen to this kick and you'll think, ha, you know what, right now, I don't like the way that that's sounding. Maybe I'll grab something else. Oh, yeah. And another thing I may do with this equalizer, with this sound in particular, I might just add a little bit of a high shelf. Let's listen. And going back here, there might be a little bit too much detune. Yes. Not yet. So, and I'll probably come back to that a little bit later too. The next thing I want to do actually is duplicate this, and I just want to make a little pluck, just kind of doing some basic sound design stuff. So pluck 1, oops, 1. And what I'm going to do here is I'm actually just going to take away all these bottom notes and just use the top notes. And you know, hearing that makes me think maybe if I took these guys out, let me actually mute them. So with this, what I'm going to do, I'm actually going to get rid of this guy, and we're going to load up SynthMaster 1. Let's go ahead and do SynthMaster 1. And let's just make a basic pluck sound. And I'll just do like a saw-ish pluck, but maybe we can start using the wavetables as well. It's so quiet. That's why it's so quiet. Ah. So with these plucks, it's really important that you get both the mod envelope with the cutoff. I'm going to use, fine, I'll just use just go with the diode ladder. Actually, maybe I'll go with like just a ladder filter, just for some more of that high end. I play around with this reverb too. And maybe is what I'll do, I'll actually just pick a, for synth, there's this nice, gets this bright synth generic, maybe that's what it is. Nope. But define for synth. What the heck? I know I have all my presets, but it's okay. Yeah, that sounded good. And probably what I will do, and maybe I'm not going to do this now, but later on I'll put a compressor after that reverb just to kind of glue everything together, because right now it doesn't feel like it's too glued together, but that's okay. So let's go ahead and work on this pluck. If I turn it on. What I like doing with some of these sometimes is turning on the unison, but kind of having both the supersaw sound, which has free running oscillators, and this phase retriggered one. Actually, let's... Might turn this off for now. And just like we did last time is what I'm going to do, except this time it might be a little bit more extreme, is mapping the mod source, which is going to be, in this case, mod envelope 2. Oops. In mod envelope 1. We're going to switch that to mod envelope 2. I may actually turn in this sub oscillator. Actually, I think what I'm going to do with this is not do any of the supersaw sound with this one, and well, we can do that with the next one. And this is where a chorus can really help too. We'll see if I actually like the sound of this. Yeah, the thing that I'm thinking about doing, let's go ahead and fold this in C, is just layering this with these root notes here. Be if I'm thinking about going down to this G sharp here, which I may or may not do. It's a C, not the G sharp. There's the G sharp. Whoops. Let's go ahead and save this too as. Just gonna save this in documents as. Let's just call this SynthMaster. Oops. Actually, not a huge fan of the drumming mode in live. Then. And now I think this goes down to the E, but I don't really want to play it. Well, maybe I can play the E. Let's see. These guys are playing the same notes. That's why we're getting a voice disappearing. Or I mean the same, well yeah, I guess the same notes. Let's see if I can try it with this E here. C sharp. Let's see. notes are we playing here? I'm just going to fold you for now. So this looks like a D sharp, so can I do it? Maybe. We'll see. Just going to drag this over to arrangement view and just do it this way because it's a little bit easier to work with. I'm just having a lot of trouble just getting this. So let's go ahead and see. It's down to the D sharp. That sounds right to me. So we're going to take this, put that there instead. And the important thing for these plucks too well, I'm saying everything's important, is just to make sure the delay is right. Right now there's nothing. Let's go ahead and turn some on. Is a pad, and I don't want to get too much into this right now, but let's go ahead and just do some quick sound design for this pad, and then I'll call it a night. do also is just map LFO 1 to the pitch of all these oscillators. So we're going to do source LFO 1 and we're going to do oscillator 1. I'm just going to do pitch for now, but maybe I'll change this to fine pitch. Make sure we have enough release on here too. You know, the one thing I think I was missing from these leads, I know I keep coming back to them, but it sounds really good. I think I just need some noise, just some white noise. do CC1 for this. And I think the last thing to do here also is CC1. I also want to do mod envelope 1, which is what I'm using for the filter. I need to make sure the final, maybe I'll do the final level. That's okay. Okay, that's pretty good. In the next video, we'll go ahead and write in the chords, and we'll add some more pads and stuff. But hope this was interesting. Hope you learned a lot, and I'll see you guys next time.